What is the truth in the stories we are told? We've been given a story of a world fueled by separation. We've become separate from one another, separate from the earth, ultimately separate from the true nature of ourselves. It's time we learn the truth. It's time you rewrite your story. It's time to realign with who it is that you really are. This is the fifth dimension.
You are infinite and eternal. We are infinite and eternal.
Our natural essence, we could say, is simply being.
We have this awakening coming together as a perfect storm.
We're ready for this. We have the capacity inside. We just got to find that.
All right, everybody, welcome into the fifth dimension. And for today's show, we have a familiar guest. It's actually been a little while. So, I mean, if you're an OG listener of the show, you might remember I'm joined by my friend Barrington Martin. Barrington, such a pleasure to have you on, get to chat again, man. So
no, it's all my pleasure, man. Anytime you want to talk, I'm always down here for you. I really appreciate you bringing me back on the fifth dimension.
No, absolutely, man. And no, it's been crazy. I mean, we were just chatting a little bit about sort of our own evolution. And since the last time we chatted, I mean, maybe anyone who even doesn't know you, or I'm curious myself, what have you found your own sort of, focus to be on right now? I mean, there's so much like chaos in the world and just crazy times, but where do you find your focus at the moment and sort of where you've been aligning with and, where you're putting your energy towards?
Oh man, I think I've been putting my energy into myself more so than anything, right? Yeah. I think to be specific, self-mastery. I think that you should, or this is just my personal philosophy, I think a person should attempt to be better than who they were the day before and just continue on that cycle just to see that they become the best version of themselves. But even more specifically, now more so than ever, I have kind of sort of withdrew this idea of belief. I think that the more I've grown, the more I've learned, I feel like, and I was speaking to someone about this, I would say 2 days ago, I think I legitimately feel like belief is the barrier that kind of sort of prevents humans from getting to their higher consciousness. I really feel that. I feel like, because what I started to understand or learn rather was that the belief and everything it encompasses is the only thing that belief and faith are two things that human beings can adhere to or submit to without having any type of evidence, having any type of data, have any type of numbers. And in my opinion, this goes against natural human order and for us to understand our environment, because we like to be able to see things, touch things, understand why things are the way that they are, and the things that occur with them. But what I started to realize is that in order for us to get to the next level, get to that higher consciousness, you legitimately have to tear down all beliefs, all understandings, and because the only one true thing that exists is yourself. And I know you see things that I talk about on Twitter, and as far as being accountable and being self-reliant, but like legitimately, and this may sound a little bit controversial, but I think that even if you have any type of religious beliefs, this ties into it, because even all the holy texts in some form or fashion say that we're a piece of God, right? Mm-hmm. So if we're a piece of God, then that means that the only one true God is yourself. However, the divine is real, and the divine is your connection to God itself. And so if you do everything you're supposed to do for yourself, you're doing whatever God asked you to do, because that's at the end of the day a part of your higher consciousness. Sorry for being so verbose, but I had to get that.
I love it. No, dude, I love that. You're speaking my language over here, because that's really everything that I do is within, in the foundation of that realm of self-development, of self-expression, recognizing that everything that we are perceiving, everything that we are recognizing, it's all from the same source, right? And we are of that source. And so how do we continue to I guess, understand our own true nature and live in alignment with our own true nature, and ultimately look at reality without the illusions that are often placed in front of our eyes, right? We have so many veils of illusion that and the beliefs about self, beliefs about the world. I mean, ideologies that we cling to, which, I think is more prevalent than even the last time we spoke. And that was such a huge thing.
Oh, man, absolutely.
So, it's like clinging to identities and ideologies and making that sort of the veils that we look at the world from. When we do that, we're not connected with reality. And I think that's where we're seeing sort of the disconnect and sort of a lot of the chaos, I suppose, that's going on. But when we can come back to ourselves and we can sort of be in that foundation of recognizing that we are the creator in this moment, here and now, at all moments,
Correct.
then the infinite of possibility and opportunity, it opens up to us. And
Absolutely. Oh man. I believe this wholeheartedly, because another thing too, and I don't want to speak on it too much because I know you have more stuff to talk about, but like programming. I really feel like everyone needs to go back and watch The Matrix, but like when they watch it, don't watch it to be entertained. Watch it to actually listen to the dialogue and really concentrate on what's being said. The reason I say this is because, again, to answer your first question, I've been like really understanding the programming that I've been upon since I was a kid, even into my adulthood. I understand the notion of programming because the programming, the indoctrinations, all of those things go into how we behave, our thoughts of ourselves and our thoughts of others within the society that we live in. And I'm saying this because I have been more so really questioning the desires that I have, whether it's right now or for the future, because you really have to understand the things that you want out of life or the things you want in general. Is that what you want? And by what I mean by you, because I don't think people get like there are multiple versions of themselves. And I don't mean in a schizophrenic, multiple personalities type of way. Like, for example, there is a Barrington who you may have an idea of and the external world has an idea of, but there's a Barrington that only I know. Which the Barrington that has the internal dialogues that I have with myself, the Barrington that know what makes me feel a certain way, the Barrington that knows what external factors that I have absolutely no control over, but my body, due to my brain process, is going to automatically respond to something. So when you actually like think about all of these things, you're like, even since you were a kid, like how your parents were to you, a lot of the lessons that you learned, a lot of the things that come from your family, things that come from school, you start to get an idea of like how you were programmed, right? Yeah. And I bring up The Matrix because the one interesting thing about the new Matrix movie that they said is that the programmers never had to program themselves, right? Yeah. So it means the programmers were able to operate the way they wanted to operate, and like legitimately. And I talked about this today, like your algorithm on your phone on social media is legitimately what you program it to be,
right?
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, like, we're just like our brains and us in general are just like this one big organic like machine, right? And like computers, we have a CPU, we have a processing unit, we have a memory, we have like all this storage to where like the things that we've been introduced to, the things that we're exposed to continues to shape us every day. However, if you don't take a second to just step back and legitimately like rinse, my joint say rinse your brain or rinse your programming from what has been programmed to you, you'll get caught up into things that don't even matter. Yeah. And I think that's what we see right now.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. What would you say has been the most difficult programs for you to, I would say release? I mean, in a sense, in a way, we always sort of hold attachments to our old programs in ways like we have the temptation to fall back into old ways of seeing the world or ideas about the self. And what has been sort of, I guess, difficult programs to release, but also sort of eye-opening programs that you've learned about yourself?
I would think that like I would say the program or the propensity to care about what other people think. I think the program of societal pressures, if that encapsulate what I'm trying to say right there, because you can feel a certain type of way, but then we have these notions that society says that this is what we should be doing. This is how we should be feeling. This is what you should be thinking. And when you find yourself within yourself and away from those programming and you program yourself, what you'll start to see is a lot of points of life start to conflict. Like how you feel versus what society says you're supposed to be doing, specifically like when in regards to age. Like I'm in my 30s, right? So some people will feel like, oh, well, you need to be married. You need to have a family. All of this stuff that they say you're supposed to be doing. But essentially, maybe that's not your path. If it's not your path, you're walking on your own programming. But it's so easy to get pressured into or tricked into thinking that, okay, I'm at this stage of life, or this is what age I'm in, so I need to be able to do this. It's like, no. And society have a tendency to do that. And it's so hard to undo that programming. Like it's extremely hard to do this program because peer pressure is real and it's tough. And then when you see, and this is, I think, to answer your question, to watch me as an individual divert from the programming from my family in a lot of respects, especially in regards to political thought, I think that's been like one of the most eye-opening like things, like to see or to understand that people get stuck in mindsets and it's hard to undo those mindsets. And so it's kind of sort of, you have to program yourself to always be forward thinking, to always be optimistic, and to always be open-minded about the things that you experience. But at the same time, I feel like you have to maintain your sense of integrity or your sense of individuality, to always stand on your square and to believe what you really believe in, no matter who comes at you with anything or no matter what's said about what you believe.
Absolutely, man. And I definitely relate to that in the sense you almost become sort of a black sheep in regards to my previous circles. And,
yes.
because, you drop all of the ways that you used to define yourself by, really. I mean, these programs, they make up our identity. They make up how the world is perceiving us. Like it's the story that we were telling the world. And all of a sudden we're deciding to rewrite the story. I mean, there's going to be a lot of people who can't really handle that, because when another person sees you step into sort of your authenticity and actually take control of your programming, it's almost viewed in some sense by others as a threat. Because if I'm sitting here and I'm watching you speak your truth and like say what you have always meant to say, right, and you're not afraid to be you anymore, but I'm sitting over here, little me as a victim, you being yourself poses a threat to my own ability to view the world as a victim. I'm going to respond in anger or distress when I am interacting with you, because you're living the life that I am unconsciously yearning for. In a sense, you're representing something that exists beyond my current belief structure. And so, a lot of people are going to have a difficult time about sort of that changing of the programming and the willingness to sort of rewrite that script. And I think that is accounting for a lot of the division that we're seeing today. I mean, I think a perfect example is you when you were running for Congress, and I had just talked to you. You ran as a Democrat, right? And that's
right.
All of a sudden, if somebody were to hop onto your Twitter, they'd be like, "This dude was a Democrat? What? No way! He was aligned with the left." It's sort of like, you were able to let go of the idea that you needed to align with a certain ideology or a certain way of thinking, because that is who you were growing up, and that is who your family is, and this and that, and all the different stories and excuses that we really tell ourselves, right, of why we need to think a certain way. And so but I think it's a perfect representation of how you can, when you actually open yourself up to the possibility of change, how you evolve into the more authentic you.
Absolutely, 1000%. And to your point, something else I want to add. A lot of times when you're who you want to be, not who you're supposed to be, not what society or people tell you that you need to be, but when you legitimately done the introspection and all the work needed to be your authentic self, you're a threat because you make people question themselves. And that's something people do not do enough. I feel like a lot of people don't have those internal dialogues they need to have with themselves in order to actually understand who they are and their place within this world that we all share. And so when people see like you being you, there's a certain sense of confidence and self-esteem that you have that is just can't be broken. Yeah. And what it in turns does is it make a person feel bad about themselves. Like, damn, what is it about him or her that makes her feel this way, makes her like speak so comfortably to make them so strong in their convictions? And then the very moment they start thinking about themselves, they get afraid. And when they get afraid, they shut down everything else. This is legitimately what I feel like is happening in regards to this vaccine for the most part. You have people who have been scared into submission going on in the world. And they went ahead and did what they felt was best for them, which is totally fine. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you were lagging out a little bit. I think that it pretty much cut out.
You hear me?
Yeah, hold on. Now I can't. Hold on.
Oh, my connection is messing up.
Oh, here we go. All right, hold on.
See, that's what happened. See, can you hear me now?
Yeah, now.
Oh, you see that? That's no mistake. It's like, oh, he's getting too real.
Yeah, exactly.
Now we're fine. See, it always does that. But basically, what I was trying to say is that people get so afraid that, and when they see that you're not afraid, they're like, wait a minute, something's wrong with you. Something's wrong with you. Like, why aren't you not like me? And because in the back of their mind, they have some type of buyer's remorse. Like, damn, I wish I listened to my gut instinct, or I wish I would have did this. And now he's doing or she's doing what I felt like I should have been doing. So let me demonize them because I need them to feel just like I feel. When essentially, like, it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. And it's crazy because, I think we are seeing, and like you were getting into before the audio cut out and the state took control of our podcast. Are like, nah, they're speaking too many facts.
Right.
Something like the vaccine issue. Like if somebody wants to get it by any means, whatever.
I don't care.
Exactly. People can make their own decisions. And I think but at the same time, if somebody were to ask me what my thoughts are, I'd be like, well, I wouldn't recommend it. But again, to each their own. But when you step into your own sense of empowerment and you're able to look at the bully, or you're able to look at something that is scaring a lot of people into submission, like you're saying, and you're able to look it in the eye and you're able to say, I'm not afraid of you, and I'm going to keep being myself. And in fact, that fear that you are trying to generate within me, I'm going to use that as a motivator. I'm going to go out and I'm going to kick ass and take names, because I'm going to be my authentic self. That is going to somebody's going to see that, and they're either going to be scared further into submission and they're going to double down on the victim identity until their grave, or they're going to use it as a wake-up call, and that's so you can be an inspiration by actually choosing to step out of the victim complex and take a little bit of responsibility for how you want to feel, who you want to be, the role that you want to play in the world, the words that you choose to speak. And your words ultimately speak things into existence. So you're conscious when you're consciously creating your reality and consciously controlling the perception, changing the world through changing your own projection. That is true power. And that is, I think, what the time I feel very optimistic about where we're going personally.
Really?
Yes, I do, because there's a lot of people I feel who are consciously changing their perception at a rate that is more profound previously. I think there's an illusion of support for a lot of the mainstream narratives. I think a lot of the division is amplified to be thrown into our faces. I think some of the extreme woke and left ideologies that we see on Twitter, they're not supported in reality by the majority.
Okay.
I mean, I go into the sauna, for example, at the gym, and, I have conversations about higher consciousness and the, truth about the vaccine, like almost every day. It astonishes me the types of information the average people that I'm running into are seeking out. Now, obviously, is that everybody? No. Is that the majority? I probably still wouldn't say no, but you don't need a majority to change how society operates. You need a vocal minority, and a minority that is willing to do the work, right? So, I'm optimistic because I don't think it's possible to implement all of these ideologies and ways of being that these technocratic agendas want, because as long as I'm staying empowered myself, what is the worst that could actually happen? I can go and make change. The people around me are actively making change. So, I feel optimistic personally. I know not everybody does, but
yeah, see, I'm on the fence a little bit because Jordan B. Peterson uses metaphor of Bugs Bunny and Yosemite Sam, where Bugs Bunny puts the lines in the sand, and Yosemite Sam keeps crossing it, and then eventually he keeps putting a line in the sand, and Yosemite Sam keeps crossing it. And I honestly feel like that's where we're at right now, because I feel like people have the right idea in regards to understanding, just the inaccuracies, the inconsistencies, and things of that nature has been happening over this entire pandemic. However, I think that we've seen a couple of things that are kind of sort of unspoken of. One, we've seen just how much the corporate media and mass media sways public opinion.
That is true.
Two, we've seen, I feel like, just how obedient people are. And I think that's been that itself has made me not pessimistic, but just on the fence, because I just find it ironic that the same country that had the American Revolution in 1776 years later, almost 250 years later, are being obedient, but not necessarily being obedient to the government, but obedient to the unfounded bullying of the minority. You feel me?
Yeah.
Not even the majority that's the louder, it's the minority that's the loudest. And in turn, it is made people afraid. That's why I detest, I can't conceptualize the thought, I would say, of being canceled. That's not something that I fear, especially since if you're telling the truth and you're telling it respectfully, I don't understand how you can be afraid of people not liking you. And I think that ultimately cancel culture plays on people's insecurity and low self-esteem, I feel like, because Absolutely. I feel like even, I don't care who you are, it wouldn't bother you that a person says they don't like you or they're going to cancel you simply because they disagree with an opinion that you have. No, that would not bother you at all. But for whatever reason, we're living in a time in society where, and it's kind of messed up when you think about it, that I get it, in certain environments, there are certain opinions that don't need to be stated out loud. I totally understand there's a time and place for everything. Absolutely. However, if you feel a way, if I were to wear a back to blue mask and I went somewhere, that's how I feel. It's not bothering you. It's not hurting you. You may disagree with that, but to alienate and ostracize me simply because that's how I feel, a personal opinion of mine that does not harm anybody, and for me to be afraid to express that about myself, no, that just means that I'm not on my square. I'm not strong into my beliefs or my convictions to allow you to bully me to feel differently or to not be proud of something that I possibly or maybe feel I should be proud of.
Absolutely. And I guess what we're going to find out is just how courageous are people, how courageous are people moving forward? Because I think you're right. A lot of people, I think, are afraid of the cancellation. They're afraid of the mob mentality coming after them. They don't want to be ostracized by their peers. I mean, because really, if you think about it, it's in our evolutionary programming to know that if we are ostracized from the tribe, in earlier times, that meant death, right?
Yeah.
That meant the inability to survive. So
yeah.
there's almost a primal nature that this cancel culture and these sort of tactics play on. And it is in that sense that we think somehow we are going to be alienated from a tribe. But the reality is, when I started speaking up about things, like actually used my voice authentically, I found people who did the same thing. So it was sort of an illusion that I had no tribe waiting for me
Yes.
when I started saying these things. So I think we're going to find out how courageous people are as things get a little crazier. I mean, the Joe Rogan thing that's going on right now is a perfect example of what the corporate media is willing to do. But even then, I wonder how many people actually care about what Joe Rogan said. I mean, I think the average person isn't going to look at Joe Rogan any differently, to be perfectly honest with you. And there is just a push by the corporate media to get him off of Spotify, right? I mean, it's already been, there's some great evidence coming out, and I don't know if you see this, to show that it was a politically, like it was funded by a super PAC, this attack on him. It was funded by a super PAC.
Wow.
And I retweeted the info on it. I think Midas Touch or something, and it was they take money. They get millions in from the.
Oh, I've heard of this now. Okay, he's coming back to me. Yes.
So
yes. Okay.
And they funded sort of the Joe Rogan character assassination. So I mean, it's just an example of corporate media doing what corporate media does. But as people are losing faith in corporate media, there's a reason they're going after Joe Rogan, right? So I almost wonder if the cancellations and all of these sort of things, like being canceled almost feels more irrelevant than it used to. Like, I don't think as many people care about it per se, because Joe Rogan's still going to pull in 11 million people on his episodes, whether it's on Spotify or if he moves to Rumble or starts his own platform. So I kind of wonder what the, or if it's possible to even sustain this sort of mob mentality moving forward, because it feels to me like, yes, they are coming for Joe Rogan. So imagine what they would do to you if, you were to speak up. But I almost have to wonder if it's possible to sustain this. Oh, you're froze out a little bit. Did you end up hear what I was saying? But
Are you, am I good now?
yeah, I think so.
Man, I'm telling you, I really like, see, this is gonna sound crazy, but I don't like, I was just on a Zoom 2 days ago and I had no problems. So this is what I'm saying. Like, this is so
same. They do it every time I'm on a conversation it starts hitting on some of the really controversial areas. Like, dude, they mess with it. I don't know what it is.
You can't tell me otherwise. Okay, so this is the thing with Joe Rogan, right? And I don't know if you heard this, but Rumble was offering him 100 mil to come. Okay, so this is the thing with him. Like, it's multi-layered, because I think that you going after him because of the freedom that he has to say what he wants to say, but the people that he's bringing on his platform, they totally demolish the narratives. No matter if it's right or wrong, because this is the first time in my natural history that I've felt like everything has always been questioned or misinformation or information has had to be accurate. Information has not had to be accurate until now. Like, evidence of this is that our food pyramid has been one of the most inaccurate things involving nutrition of all time, but no one's ever questioned it or anything of that nature, right? So, this is another level of virtue signaling, because they're telling you, like, you shouldn't listen to him. Why? Because he's saying bad stuff, and we're doing this because we're trying to help you save your lives. No, at the end of the day, this is America, and I have a right to listen to what I want to listen to, and I have a right to make the decisions for me, despite whatever you feel that is wrong for me, right? So another thing with Joe Rogan that I find is interesting is that, and it's crazy to me because people aren't catching on to how this works. You tried to get him with misinformation, couldn't work. Could not work. People not biting. The next best thing to get him on,
racism.
Can't get him on. And then it's like, yo, we got him. He said the N-word. We got him. Nope. Now, what you're gonna start to see is they're gonna turn up the pressure a little bit more. They're probably right now, what can we get him on? What can we get him on? Because if we don't, he's gonna make things harder for us. So what do I mean by that? Right now, you have corporate media ratings going down in the toilet. So now people what I want to call it, the tube, the mind control tube is becoming less effective now, because now you're having millions and millions of people who are now tuning into Joe Rogan. And again, like I said, even if he isn't 100% accurate, you're making people think about what's being said versus what they hear on a day-to-day basis, right? So now it's like, oh shit, we need to scramble and do whatever we have to do to make sure we silence this man. And that's the thing. The last thing I want to get to in regards to Joe Rogan is the fact that, like, the First Amendment is the first thing in our Bill of Rights. And you mean to tell me that we care about information being accurate so much that we're willing to silence people for simply going outside of the main narrative? I'm calling BS on that. I'm calling BS on that. Like it's apparent, but for whatever reason, again, going back to what I said earlier, mindset. You've been programmed to accept and to be spoon-fed information for so long that anytime it does not come from the source who you're used to the information coming from, or the fact that, or add into the fact rather, excuse me, that this right here is one of the biggest tools of indoctrination and mind control and information overload, to the point to where we're not actually able to process information, digest it the way we should. We hear something, we live in a microwave society. We see a news title, that confirms my bias. I'm gonna spread it, not read it, not look at the dynamics of what's been said, not doing any type of research for ourselves, but we're also being attacked from the other end saying doing research for yourselves. That sounds crazy. Someone actually said this on a media platform. And I'm just like, where are we going? This goes back to like what I'm saying. Like, I want to be optimistic because there are so many people who are woken up or more awake than they've ever been before, but yet still the masses are so easily manipulated by the thoughts and the ideas of other people. I would think I would never be witnessing this in my lifetime, to see something on the news or to see something on the internet and to automatically know up that's BS, but then to watch the comments of people say, oh my God, I can't believe this. And it's like, God, you know.
Right. No, dude, definitely. You almost have to wonder, it's like, maybe this type of programming to this level has existed all along, and it's only because we're awakened from it now that we actually can see through it. But it's always been there. I mean, the New York Times has been propaganda since from the beginning, but somehow it was considered the gold standard, and that's because nobody could see through it, right? And you know, in talking about free speech and sort of the elimination of the word and the censorship, and you almost have to, like, I look back to like something like religious texts, right? We're going way back, the origins of civilization. You know, in the beginning was the word. What does the word represent? The word represents the bridge between your imagination and the physical reality, right? So, you know, when you are speaking authentically and you are actually engaging in dialogues, or you're listening to different dialogues, that is a creation process. That is a process of you taking a personal responsibility for your reality and actually directly shaping your reality, right? And if you have free flowing dialogues, if you have authentic word, if you have people who are speaking unfiltered, and it doesn't even matter if it's true or not, you have a population of people that are not able to be controlled, that are not able to conform to one common groupthink ideology, because the word represents true diversity. It represents true individuality, because we all have our own individual word, right? And so there's such power in spoken word that, you know, that's why it was the First Amendment, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, because there's nothing more powerful than expression. And so it's very telling to see sort of any kind of censorship. It's really telling to see how it's escalated and understand what sort of the malevolent intent is for these corporate media giants and big tech and the government. I mean, when you have the government asking Spotify, or really telling Spotify, hey, can you do something about this? And then Spotify removes 100 episodes. That's eye-opening, because that's how they value the word, and that's how they value your, like you and I's word, our
Yeah.
ability to think, our ability to create based on our own imagination, our ability to, just have an opinion that differs from the mainstream narrative, right? So it's very
Yes.
telling the direction that they want to move us in. And maybe my optimism for the future stems from being in an echo chamber of free thinking individuals, but
Get it.
which is very possible. But it keeps the vibrations high. So what can I say? Kind of have to do it.
No, I totally understand. Because you have to be around, like you have to be around like-minded people. I think like I'm not pessimistic at all, because at the end of the day, I feel like at some point in time, the people will have had enough. But I guess my pessimism comes in the fact that I feel like what more is it going to take for you guys to understand this? Because I feel like we're getting to almost to a breaking point. And my first, like, not necessarily breaking point, when I knew I saw the writing on the wall, is when they removed Trump from social media. That's when I knew. And the thing about it is, I can say this without being a Trump supporter or a Trump hater. Rather, I just see things as the way they are, because I'm never too far on one side. I think you can't be that way. Essentially, like there's certain things that I am absolute on, but things like that, never. Because it doesn't matter if I support him or I'm against him. It's not right to deplatform a sitting president, because what you just told me as a regular layman is that you can shut me up anytime you want to. And that's what's been happening. You got Trump, then you had Marjorie Taylor Greene, then you had Robert Malone. There's another young lady, I can't think of her name. She got deplatformed. She had a lot of followers, but you're taking away people who have, like, they're prominent people within our society. This is the actual inventor of the mRNA technology, a president, a congresswoman, all because of the things that they said, like on the public forum, on the social square. Wow. And if you don't think that that's insane, if you don't think that that's a problem, then what you're going to end up happening, or what you're going to end up seeing, is that, like, it's going to become more constant. It's going to become more normal. And when things like that become more normal, it gives way to a lot of the atrocities we've seen in the past. And this is why they say, the past always repeats itself, because it does. And I don't think, I just feel like there hasn't been enough sense of urgency for the people to take a step back and wait a minute, guys, this isn't right. But the media just has been so amazingly gifted at captivating emotion to the point to where there is not an ounce of logic within certain people, within their decision making, within their rhetoric. It's all based in feeling. It's
Absolutely.
ridiculous.
No, absolutely, man. And it's interesting, because it seems like the totalitarian tiptoe that we have been on.
Yes.
It's very much like a mind virus, if you will, right? It inflicts like a poison into people's minds to where they can't think rationally. You can't think clearly. There's a consensus, like a consent to silencing the oppositional views, because it ultimately, when you take in these ideologies and you really it kind of goes back to what we were talking about with identity earlier, right? When you make the foundation of your identity this line of thinking, whether it's you see people with triple vaxxed in their bios or whatever, the pronouns, things of that nature. Anytime somebody who is speaking against that is speaking against the foundation of their very identity, right?
Correct.
So it's no wonder that somebody is going to consent to the silencing, because all right, now my identity is not threatened anymore. I don't have to actually entertain what that person said, because they were silenced, and they are no longer here to question who I am, because I'm not ready to question who I am. So who are they to do that for me, right? So, but it's really a personalization of these ideologies. And you speaking of the atrocities of all the ones we've seen, even in the last 100 years, a lot of times it's the starting of like an identity based on ideology, as opposed to recognizing who we are at our core, at our true nature.
Yes.
it's a very dangerous slope that we are on. And
Yes.
yeah, I don't exactly know what if, us being in the modern age, you like to think that we are not capable of atrocities of the past, but I'm sure they said the same thing however many
Oh,
years ago.
absolutely.
Right.
Easily. And I just feel like we have yet to understand, I would say, the truth, I would say, of human nature.
Hmm.
Like, I think that sometimes we tend to forget that, like, all animals is the survival of the fittest. And I say this because a lot of people talk about what's human, what's not, what makes a person human, right? And I personally believe ultimately what makes a person human is two things. It's the ability to feel emotion and not allow those emotions or to have control of your emotions, to not allow your physiological reactions to automatically be something natural from your carnal brain. You need to take control of yourself. But the most important thing that makes humans human to me is the ability to dominate other humans without hurt or harm.
Hmm.
That's what I legitimately think. I think that human beings are probably the only species of animals that can show domination without having to inflict pain or inflict harm upon another human being. We see this all the time. And I think that ultimately, in a lot of respects, we tend to place ourselves on this pedestal of sentient beings, which I totally understand because we created civilization. However, there are still a lot of thought processes that we have in regards to how we deal with each other that is like essentially prehistoric.
Yeah.
Like it's ridiculous. Just like we're supposed to be a nation of independence, we're supposed to be a nation to where anybody can come here, and as long as they don't interrupt another person's independence, another person's pursuit of happiness, as long as they don't interrupt that, do what you want to do. But it's not like that at all. People are legitimately like, well, you feel this way, I don't feel this way, so I think that this should happen to you because you don't feel this way, even if you're not harming me. Like, it's really ridiculous. And so when we like are looking at this type of behaviors from human being post-modernity, it makes me wonder, like, are we really that advanced of a civilization, like, that we think that we are? Because we haven't, like, it's like we haven't grasped like very foundational concepts of like interpersonal relationships.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. It almost feels to me like the psyche of humanity is very much in an adolescent stage.
Yes.
And I actually I think we're almost reverse aging in terms of our mind. Like we're going backwards more
Yes.
into an like infantilized state, if you
Yes.
will, with more of the technologies and some of the innovations that we're making, we're almost creating a system that we can become totally dependent upon, where we don't need to take personal responsibility. And
Yes.
the result of that has created an infantilized mind. It's created uh, a, a a psyche in the average man where they don't need to grow up. They can forever be reliant upon the nanny state, the big old daddy government to come on in and take care of them
Yep.
because it I think what we're seeing like manifest ultimately in terms of the technocratic state, in terms of some of the authoritarian measures. Like how often does a parent tell their child, no, you can't say that. No, you can't think that. Oh no, this is wrong. This is that. This is how you need to act. This is what you need to do, right? And I mean, it's no different than like we're viewing the government as our parents. We're viewing the state as sort of uh the method of survival. Like they're the zookeepers and we are the domesticated breed of human, if you will, right? And so uh,
Absolutely.
as we have used our intelligence to create all of these wonderful technologies, and the phone's a great technology, but a lot of people are enslaved to it, and
Yes.
things of that nature.
Absolutely.
We've lost touch with a lot of the essence of what makes us human. We're lost touch with our natural state, and there needs to be a serious wake up call to actually to recognize that. I almost don't know how to get people to see that within themselves, because that you almost need to feel a deep sense of pain or betrayal from the system itself to recognize that it is not there for you.
Oh man, that's funny because you went right where I wanted to go, and you said something. You said they need to feel a pain or a deep betrayal from the system. But personally, I just think people need to experience some type of suffering or pain in general. I think that human life, the essence of human life is suffering. And I think this goes back to the first question you asked me. I want to say, in me like learning, or where have I been discovering, and things of that nature. Or, and I'm sorry, the second question, what has been surprising to me on my journey? Human life is about suffering, 1000%. I would say in my personal life, in my personal journey, I realized that my biggest instances of growth have always happened after a traumatic experience or some type of pain that I experienced, whether it's emotions, not necessarily. Well, I can count physical. I can count physical pain. I can count when I had to get 17 stitches right here, learn a big lesson, right? But like, whether it's mental, physical, emotional, like, I feel like human beings are not meant essentially to have a system of constant ease. I think that there's something that needs to be always, like, always needs to be an obstacle, whether it's simple, whether it's difficult, in order for humans to continue to progress. And I think that because of technology, because of us pushing past modernity and getting to a point of where there's so much convenience, especially in the westernized world, we tend to have created obstacles that aren't even there. And essentially, these obstacles that aren't even there have led to the deterioration of like, I would say, original practices that we've had: survival, critical thinking, problem solving, puzzle solving, things of this nature. Like we haven't, when you look at like the Industrial Revolution up to now, you'll see so many advances that have occurred. Now I feel like we've hit that point to where there are still advances that are occurring, but it's kind of like at a slower pace than it's ever been. And when you look at, or you parallel this to society, you see that, man, like, people don't even critically think anymore. Right. People, not to put a pressure on you, Evan, how many numbers would you say you have memorized right now? Telephone numbers.
I would say 4, maybe.
Okay, right. Okay, right. So there used to be a time, I remember this as a kid, like growing up, we didn't have cell phones, right? So if I went out somewhere with my friends or whatever, there was a list of numbers I had, like, saved up in my mind that, okay, like, I need my mom or my dad to come get me. If they can't get me, then I have to call my grandmas. If they can't get me, I have to call my aunts. Worst come to worst, I call my cousins or my uncles. Like, that's like 12, 13 numbers right there. Right. You know what I'm saying? Now, we don't think about stuff like that. Oh, I'll just go on my phone, like, I'll just go find it and then press talk, right? So it's little, like, micro examples. That's a micro example, but when you put it on the macro, you see how important things like that is. Like it's really intriguing and fascinating to watch these things happen in real time, of just how not necessarily addictive, but just how reliant we are on technology itself, to the point to where we mimic this same relationship to government, and not understanding that the more reliant we are on government, the more of control they have on us. I mean, that's the thing. So many people, and that's another thing, is fear. Fear is the biggest thing that governs our society right now, more so than any president, more so than any legislators. Fear. I say this because so many people are afraid to fail. So many, and that's the thing, like it's a liberating feeling, I believe, to know that it took your own merits for you to gain whatever outcome it is that you're looking for. It's so liberating. But to know that you have daddy government that's gonna catch you if you ever fall. Don't worry, I got you. It takes away another aspect of being human to me, and that's resilience. That's determination. Like no matter what happens, if I know for a fact that I have no choice but to succeed because I'm just going to hit the floor. I'm going to land flat on my face. But even if I do land flat on my face, I'm going to get up and try it again. Now we're having people basically indirectly begging to be what is the word? Subordinate to the government, when essentially the biggest reason people come here is they know like everything's on me. I can bet on myself, and that's the thing that is lost. And so now, man, you have things people say like microaggressions. You have things people say like fat phobia. When essentially, when you look at the original men and original women who didn't have machinery, had to do everything with labor, being fat was a symptom of being very, very wealthy, very rich. Kings were fat. Kings were obese. Everybody else had to basically eat what they kill, eat what they grow. Now, man, it's life is so convenient for us. We don't have anything to struggle for, which means that we don't have anything to work for, which means that we don't have anything to work for, which means that we're very lazy. We're not just lazy physically, but lazy in thought as well. And it shows by the predicament that we have been in over the last 22 months or so.
Absolutely. No, dude, you hit the nail on the head. And I think really the lack of obstacles and really the lack of a rite of passage, if you will. I mean, because there are no rites of passage for I would say there's a biological rite of passage for women and sort of the childbearing process. Like that is a biological rite of passage, right? But for men in particular, the lack of rites of passage, it creates a lack of meaning. It creates a lack of purpose. And when you have a lack of meaning, you have a lack of purpose, you adopt a nihilistic attitude towards the world. You don't go and seek to create. You don't go seeking to explore. You sort of just live life passively. You live life obediently. You latch on to ideologies. You latch on to what is told about you, what is told about the world, what is told about it, really everything. And you just seek comfort. If there's no meaning, you know what of course you're going to just seek pleasure because you're going to run from suffering. You don't see the deeper wisdom that can come from suffering and the development that comes from it. So it really speaks to the meaning crisis, the crisis of meaning that we have been experiencing, and I think it's been building up for a long time, longer than just the last 22 months. And this past almost 2 years has been sort of this is what happens when there is no meaning in a society. They will believe anything. They will go along with anything. They will take on a collective meaning of, oh, let's go fight a virus. That's our meaning now. Finally, we have something that we can collectively unify around. Finally, a higher ideal, something that we can worship, right? Vaccines, the savior. Hallelujah. Like they're finally here to rescue us from this predicament, from this crisis. But the crisis itself provided meaning for them. So they never want it to end. And that's what all of these ideologies are playing into. And so this is sort of I guess what I'm trying to say is the solution and how we get people out of this is giving them a deeper sense of meaning and giving them a deeper sense of purpose to explore themselves, explore the world. And that all of this BS, all of these ideologies, they're totally meaningless. There's nothing in them. There's nothing in them. Ideologies can help guide you. You can help understand the world through ideologies to a degree, but they can't be your identity. A pandemic. All right. If people are getting sick, okay. Yeah, that's happening, but that doesn't need to be your whole meaning in terms of, finding safety, finding comfort, So it's quite the predicament because we almost have to sort of imagine what that newer ideal can be. What can sort of be that thing that gets people to reunify? And something like the American dream that you talked about earlier, where it really is sort of an illusion at this point, right? Where there isn't you come in and you work for yourself and you have free reign on your expression and you get to be who you want to be, and you can work for that and go through the trials and tribulations and find the golden elixir at the end of the journey, right? In terms of the fruits of your labor, that can be sort of the ideal we unify around. But it's like, how do we get people to actually embrace that beyond, like, and embrace the suffering? Because suffering is painful, and comfort can provide anesthesia,
1,000%. That's the thing I was going to ask you, like, okay, like, how do you get people to look to create value, or to look to to look to create value for themselves, or to go through something that is going to allow them to overcome and even better understand themselves? Because that's the golden question right there. Because you see people who have found a sense of belonging in something that is like not something you should find a sense of belonging in. Like, you shouldn't virtue signal getting a vaccine. You shouldn't virtue signal wearing a mask, or even the opposite. You shouldn't virtue signal either or of those things, because
Right.
I feel like those things are amoral. Doesn't make you a good person, doesn't make you a bad person. It's just a choice that you have for yourself. However, what I'm trying to figure out now is that, like, you've heard a cult of personality, but now we have cults of ideology, basically. And because we have cults of ideology, this means that people are being programmed without them knowing that they're being programmed, and it's due to their feelings. Their feelings are controlling their logic and their mind state, right? So the hardest thing to do is change someone's mind. I've always known this. My father taught me this. He talks about this with me a lot. Like, the hardest thing to do is change someone's mind, because if they've been heavily ingrained in certain types of behavior over a long period of time, it's no longer a habit at this point. It's almost as they've been running on autopilot with specific behaviors. This is what you've been having over the last 22 months in regards to this pandemic, and a lot of beliefs that has come out of this pandemic. I think in order to get people to understand, or just to see their own ways, but also notice the other ways, we have to communicate more. And this goes back to our conversation about Joe Rogan. And this is why censorship is horrible. This is why every thought, even if it's idiotic, it'll tinker something in your brain, but wait, that sounds crazy. But at the same time, you'll think about it. And that's something people don't do. People don't think anymore. People allow these machines, the news, the media, social media, other people, other opinions from other people, do the thinking for them. And that's the issue that we're seeing right now. You're almost not allowed to have your own thoughts, especially if it doesn't align with the mainstream thought. And so I think that, like, we have all the necessary capabilities to communicate to anybody in the world. Like, there is no excuse to not communicate, or to at least exchange ideas the way we should with the internet and the things that we have. However, I'm trying to figure out, or I don't know, rather, how is it possible for us to have all of these means to communicate, all of these means to share ideas, but yet there are so many echo chambers that still exist. And, like, the echoes in that chamber have gotten so loud to the point where it sounds like a sweet lullaby to those who are in that chamber, because they don't want to, like, listen to anything else. And listening and communicating is the only way to not necessarily change people's minds, but to allow them to see another perspective, because that's the only way we'll be able to grow as people, or as a collective, is by truly understanding, like, other thought processes outside of our own.
Absolutely. And that can go for both quote unquote sides, if you will. I think there's an illusion of sides. We're really all one humanity, but it goes for both sides. Like, I myself try to expose myself, even if it poisons my soul a little bit, to what they're saying over there in terms of the, some of the woke ideas, or what the corporate news is trying to say. And, you have to use your discernment to try and uncover the truth. And discernment is very much a lost art. Don't take anything for face value. Even people listening to this podcast, don't trust a word that Barrington and I are saying, right?
Don't listen. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to anything I say. Hear what I'm saying. Please hear what I'm saying, of course, but don't listen to me. Like legitimately, like, with a fine-tooth comb, go through all of my thoughts. That's all I ask. Like, I tell people this all the time. My goal is to never change your mind. That's not my goal at all. I don't give a damn about changing your mind. That's why I don't debate people, because it's not a debate. Certain things don't need to be debated. This is not a pissing contest of my intellect or yours. Never will be that. It's a conversation, because I'm pretty sure, at least with me, I'm listening to something you say that I don't agree with, and I'm listening to something you say that you can teach me, or I'm listening to something you can say as well. And it's a third thing that's going to teach me, your perspective. Because if you can at least get me to see something the way you see it, you have ultimately created a different perspective now that I have, which allows me to be able to see the bigger picture. I say this all the time. It's a reason that the Sistine Chapel is painted on the ceiling and not the floor. It's a reason, because if you paint it on the floor, you're going to miss so much. It's so much going on, and it's so much going on in that picture, right? And you were like, first you're standing on it, which is ridiculous. And so you can't see, you're going to miss a lot of things, right? And so the point of it being in the ceiling is that now I have a wider perspective, and I can see everything. I can see every single detail, every fine color, print, whatever you can think of. And I think that, like, that's how we should engage with one another. You could believe that someone could say that, hey, so they can have outlandish thought about everything that's going on right now, and I will legitimately listen to them the whole time. I'm probably like killing their argument in my mind, but that's neither here nor there. I want to know why they feel the way they feel, because maybe they see something that I don't. And you have to come to any type of conversation or any type of ideology with that type of objectivity. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And even if what they are saying is wrong, it gives a better understanding on the thought process and how somebody can come to a conclusion. And that just from knowing, having a deeper understanding of the thought process, we in turn learn ourselves, and we in turn, we're better able to sit in their shoes and actually, still be compassionate. Not just call somebody a mindless sheep, even though I'm wearing a hat that says "Lions, not sheep," personal mantra. We're actually able to be more compassionate, hold space for opposing dialogues, and just learn. Because we're not going to be right 100% of the time, and it's really a superiority complex that we're holding, and a really delusional superiority complex if we think we're going to be right all the time, and that we have all of the answers to the many crises of the world, right? So I think we got to open ourselves up, and there's no easy solutions to any of this, but there's, if we take it day by day and we just commit to growing, learning, understanding, we'll find a way. We always find a way. I like to think of this, I look back at my own life and a lot of the suffering and the challenges. It's like, shit, I'm still sitting here now. I'm still breathing. I'm still feeling good. Right? It all comes together at the end of the day in some capacity, in any moment, even if I'm locked up in chains and I'm enslaved to whatever ends like a dystopian authoritarian regime, can I still see the beauty in that? Can I still see the beauty of the world? Right? There's beauty.
You got to take me out, brother. You got to take me out. I'm not beating. I'm not being changed. No, nah, bro. Just put it right here. And
no, I know. I feel the same way. In a sense.
Good. I understand where you're getting at, though.
There's beauty present despite the chaos of the world, because beauty is the natural state. That is what consciousness is. Like that's what I think the gift of humanity is, the ability to perceive and interact with beauty. And so we need to start seeing it within ourselves, see it within one another, see it in the world around us, and in turn, poisonous ideologies and toxic ideas we hold about one another, those are naturally going to fall off if we can, change the perception of how we view ourselves in the world. And it starts internally, right? If I don't see beauty within myself, I'm never going to find it in the external world. Have to find it within myself first. And
yes. Everything's a reflection of self. Everything's a reflection of self, or put it like this, better yet, your reality is legitimately a reflection of your innermost thoughts, feelings, and just how you see yourself into the world. I believe in that. And I also believe the fact that Socrates said it best. One thing that I do know is I know nothing. And I feel like that, like that has been one of the most simple yet profoundly intricate statements that one can make, because we don't know anything. We don't know anything. The only thing we do know, and I said this earlier, is what we feel in here, what we feel and what we think. That's legitimately it. Everything else is up. It's up for debate almost.
It's a guess. I mean, it's a projection, really. Anything that we say, do, believe, like all a projection of our own series of thoughts and emotions into, and you know, maybe it's very rational, maybe it's right, maybe it's logical, but do we know for certain? We really know nothing. We really know nothing. And I think there's beauty in the unknown. But what gets a lot of people is that fear of the unknown, because what is the ultimate unknown is death. And so many people fear death as a finite end, because it's the representation of, well, if I don't have a relationship with a power beyond the individual self, and I've viewed my ego as the only thing, when that dies, of course, that's the eternal end. So of course there's fear to be had in that. So, you know, again, we need to, I guess, just redefine all of our beliefs, redefine all of our thoughts about ourselves, and come to a new understanding, man. Like it's a beautiful journey. It almost feels like we're on a time crunch in a sense for it. Like we need sort of it's like, all right, it's time to do it now. Like,
I feel like, at least, like, because I just feel we don't have any time to waste. Like, I've legitimately watched, like, and this is me posting like those blackface videos, right? Because I honestly don't have an issue with any of that, because I understand that a lot of it was done in good faith and a lot of it was done for comedic purposes. But I feel like we have gotten so sensitive and we have gotten so like heavily critical of certain things that we're taking the beauty and the purity out of certain things that were once like totally pure, right? And I feel that, like you said, like time is legitimately of the essence, because every line that we put in the sand as a society is continues to be crossed. At what point are we going to be like, no, you cross this line, then there's going to be consequences? At what point? Like, because it's been hell of lines that's gotten crossed already, and we've seen this, and it continues to happen. But it's like, until we, as a collective, come together on a unified front and just like about specifically absolute truths, then this is going to continue to happen. And who knows what society or what, you know, our country will look like if we allow it to get that far.
Right. And it's, you know, there's certainly ideas of what it could look like that are very dystopic in nature. And I think, you know, there's some, when you eliminate freedom of speech, when you eliminate the ability to defend yourself, if we're talking Second Amendment, you really eliminate natural rights. I mean, that's the grounds for authoritarianism, totalitarianism. That's the ground for really the greatest atrocities that we have seen throughout history, like you said. And it's interesting. It almost feels to me like I look at what this sort of mindset is, ideology, authoritarianism. It almost feels like, in a way, it's a sick quest for purity, right? They're almost looking for the optimal, like, this is how humans can be most efficient, right? Towards this set of ideologies. Like, if we all think together, if we all act in the same way and eliminate sort of the individual ego and ability to think outside of this box, then we are going to work together on a common goal and create quote unquote utopia, when reality, all utopias are just dystopia in disguise. So, you know, it almost takes a lot of the truths of, you know, that we do need to unify and that we can find a higher ideal to unify around, and sort of twist it into this, you know, dystopic quest for purity, in the sense, because I think a lot of these people who are, they virtue signal for the authoritarianism and they fight for free speech, they're doing it with good intentions, and they're doing it thinking it's the best path for humanity, thinking it's keeping people safe, right? And that's what makes it the most, I think, difficult to get people out of it, because they don't see the larger picture of what it creates.
Oh, 1000%. 1000%. I just think that the most dangerous people in the world or throughout human history have always thought that what they were doing was going to end up on the right side of history.
Right.
And I think that this focus, like I've seen that statement so much over the last 22 months, like, oh, you're going to end up being on the wrong side of history. Well, I personally don't care what side of history that I'm on, because that doesn't drive me. Yeah. It seems to me that these people are so hell bent on being on the right side of history that they become extremists in their ideology. And that's the problem. Like, you can't ever get like that. You can't ever become extreme in like the ideologies of what you believe or what drives your behavior. Because if you get to that point to where you're totally fine with infringing on the rights of other people, that should let you know that you're not going to be on the right side of history. Yeah, people just don't see it. They don't see the forest from the trees. They're just too ingrained in their own feelings to understand, just how serious this is right now.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I guess if they take over and they rewrite all the history books, history will judge them very kindly because they'll be the one who writes it. So they won't need to worry about being on the wrong side of history because there's no opposing narrative to what they have done. So you almost take control of the history, take control of the stories.
Absolutely.
Awesome, man. We're at about an hour, 15 minutes. I mean, we've hit on some flying through it, by, man.
Right.
So, I mean, is there any sort of last thoughts that you have or ideas about the direction we're moving? And, I guess if somebody were to ask you, Barrington, you're a very level-headed guy. I love your approach, your ideas. What do you think is the number one thing I should be focusing on in terms of when I look at the collective at large? I look at everything that's going on. How can I work in the day-to-day to actually bring about, truth? Can I actually, be on the quest for self-development and finding sort of these ideals and actually implementing them in the day-to-day? What is you got any like practical advice for people on that, or the thoughts on how we bring that about?
A wise person always told me to make good decisions. And I think ultimately, good decisions is connected to something a little bit less practical as far as like self-love. And I think that a lot of people, I can tell you to love yourself, but that doesn't really answer that question. Like, what do you mean by me loving myself? And I think that you have to take the necessary steps, make the good decisions, but also, more importantly, the sacrifices that need to be made that's going to put you not necessarily in a better position or not necessarily make you feel better, but it's going to be for your overall well-being. I think that by taking the necessary steps to love yourself, it in turns make you selfless as well. And I think selflessness ultimately is the answer to that question. Like doing something as simple as opening door for someone, telling someone you love them, smiling at a stranger because you never know what they could be feeling. And it doesn't cost anything for a simple smile or to be kind to someone. Be kind to yourself. Understand that people may not agree with you or you may not agree with other people, but give them grace. Even if you feel that you are right in a situation, give that person grace. Because even as you and I, Evan, are having this conversation right now, we have to remember that there was a time that we were not at this level of thought processes. Yeah. And we were lost in the fray. No matter, I could tell you, like, I was shot out mentally, going, thinking that I know everything in the world. However, through trial and error, through maturity, through pain, through struggle, through trauma, through all of these things that I've been through, not only did it educate me and allow me to be on this path that I'm on right now that I know is the correct path, but the most important thing it taught me was that there is a myriad of people who was once at the place that I was. And if they were once at the place that I was, then I would be remiss to treat them in a certain way simply because if they do not know. Even if they choose not to know, I was once like that as well. So in being selfless, you have to have humility. You have to be humble. You have to be graceful. You have to understand that no matter what you have, no matter what you gain in this life, that you were once at a place where you didn't have any of these things. And because you didn't have any of these things, like these things you now have obtained, they can be taken away just like that. Mm. And in understanding all of those things, I just think that ultimately, by encompassing those things, rather, you're able to love yourself, but you're able to learn how to love others. Because at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. And if we are not on a unified front, because no one does anything alone. If we're not on the unified front, we won't be able to, get those outcomes that we're looking for, or even create the world or the reality of the world that we wish to exist in. And so I just think that, like, you have to take it day by practical advice, take it day by day. Think about who you are right now, and then think about who you want to be. And then tomorrow, do your absolute best to be that person that you want to be. The next day, do it. Tomorrow, end of the day, do a personal assessment. Did I do what I needed to do for myself to be the person I want to be? If not, cool. You got an entire 24 hours to get it right. And if you continuously have this thought process on a day-to-day basis, I am the living testament to this. Whenever you start doing it, the following year, doing a personal assessment of who you were at that specific date that you started versus who you were next year. And if you have not witnessed any type of substantial growth within 365 days, guess what? You have another 365 days to get it right. You feel where I'm going with it? Like it's a day at a time. It's an hour at a time. It's a minute at a time. It's every second counts. Just look at it. Just look at it just like that. You don't necessarily have to think about it that specifically, I feel like. But ultimately, if you lead with the intention, because intentions matter, you lead with the intentions that, you know what, I'm going to be way better than I was yesterday. Simple. In the over course of time, you're going to start, you may not see it then, but when you start to reflect and be introspective on who you were a year before, a week before, it becomes addictive. It becomes addictive. And when it becomes addictive, what ends up happening is not only do you change your reality, you change your mindset, other people will start to take notice too. And that's when, and then it just catches on. It's legitimately like going viral. It's legitimately like going viral because now people want to know, or they'll be like, what are you doing different? What's going on with you? Yeah, maybe I need to try that. That's all it takes. Take it a day at a time. Try to be better than you were the day before.
Beautiful. That's the true dance of life, if you will.
Sir.
I've been viewing life as a dance and a fun exploration of what is possible within myself.
Yes.
My partnership with the world, and just moving, flowing, growing, exploring. It's truly beautiful, man. We've definitely both been on sort of that similar path, if you will. And
absolutely.
We can look back at, even since the first time we chatted, I think it was like mid 2020, a year and a half ago. Man, we were probably fools compared to where we were.
I know I was a straight up idiot. I can say that. But it's okay though, because like I said, like I always wanted to be better than I was. Now, a year and a half later, man, oh man, the growth has been substantial. I'm not the same person. I'm the same person, probably as values and integrity and the way I am as an individual, but it's so much more refined. Yes. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, man. And somebody asks, "Oh, you've changed?" You can say yes. And I'm damn proud of it too.
1000%.
Awesome, yes, man. So where would you want to send the listeners? You got I know your social media. You got any projects going on? What's sort of what's happening, man? What's got going on? What's
my radio show, the Barrington Report, on atltalksradio.com. It's on iHeartRadio. You guys check that out. I'm writing a couple of books. Can't really talk about them, but you guys are
all right.
You guys are like them. I know. Shout out to Evan too, because I checked out his book a long time ago. I never told you, but man, put on point. I actually gave it to someone.
Oh, no shit, man.
Yeah, man. I don't remember if I said anything on Twitter about it, but I definitely checked it out because I love the topic and I love the title. Now you did an excellent job, man. You need to continue. Please continue writing.
I just started up on Substack, so I've been doing some essays on there pretty regularly.
And please send me that on Twitter so I can follow you. I also have a Substack. It's called Everything and Nothing. I think it's barrington.substack.com. I don't know. Of course, you can catch me on Twitter, where I'm always raising hell on a day-to-day like it's _ Barrington II. Please check me out. I'm always on there. Let's see what else. that's all I have in the works right now. I got a couple of different projects, but I'll speak about them as we go on. But please, my IG, please follow me on IG. It's @_BDMII. I'm always posting things from my Twitter if you don't have Twitter, so you'll see the hell I raise and things of that nature. But yeah, man, I'm just steady growing, steady progressing. Just trying to do my best on my part to make the world a better place. And passing on love while I do it.
I was gonna say, man, you do a good job of it. It's visible. It's definitely visible. And I will say to any listeners who don't have a Twitter, like, you might consider signing up just to go follow Barrington, because, dude, yeah, I like your Twitter account has been one of the most like entertain on top of being, very logical and philosophical and a place to go and learn. I also find it just very entertaining to watch your interactions on there and see what people are responding to you and how you eloquently respond back. Like, it's an art. It's almost an art form. So
I like to think so, man, because it's so funny. Like, and I just love words, and I think as a fellow writer, like, you understand that, like, it's something about communicating. Like, to me, I look at Twitter almost like as a game. It's like, okay, I have these rules that I have to abide by, because if I say something, even if no matter how true, they can silence me. So I can't do that. Yeah. But then I have to be able to effectively communicate in X characters. And I just love that, man. It's always a challenge.
Oh, absolutely. It's a game. It's truly a game. But and even if we get kicked off Twitter, we'll find a new game and a new platform to go on and
platform to take over, right?
Oh yeah. Awesome, man. Well, let's definitely plan on having another podcast in the near future.
Always game. Anytime you want to talk, man, I'm always game, brother. You already know.
Absolutely, man. Awesome. Well, thank you all the listeners for tuning in. Let's go wrap up this episode, and we shall see you all on the next one.
Peace.